Hello everyone, my name is Sanjay Chavan and today I'm going to explain some key concepts of operating system. So basically we will be focusing more on system calls and how how certain processes make use of the memory and the CPU of our system. So first let's take an overview of what system calls mean. So let's start with that. So simply system calls, we can say these are the functions basically which are predefined in the OS. So these are triggered whenever we perform some applications. So if we look at the definition, we can say that these are the interfaces between the applications and the operating system. So simply we can say that whenever a user program, like whether it be any application, like be it a Google application, a browser, or any file manager, or any editor, we have our system. So whenever it needs access to hardware resources or some OS services, we need to call the system calls. So this actually, as we are like suppose we're different, most of the operating systems provide an user interface. So whenever we click the user interface, like suppose whenever we click the like suppose a VS Code icon, then we don't know what actually happens, but there are a lot of system calls being running inside the behind in the background. So actually these the system calls act as a gateway between for the memory allocation or things related to process control, under which suppose if we are talking about process control, then we have fork system call as well as exit to terminate the processes. Then we also need system calls when we have to interact with the file systems inside our file system inside our system. So for that we have different system calls like open, read, write, close. Okay, then now as I said, we also need, suppose if we need to access some hardware resources, then like suppose if we have an external HDD, then for this we also need some system calls. And may so then four system calls related to that are IOCTL, which send control commands to a device. Then so there are many system calls which we require, which the operating system runs in the background whenever we are performing some applications. So now let's see how we can, like suppose I have developed a simulator which will help us to understand how, suppose if we are, now we will be concerning only about a notepad application in this demonstration. So let me open the VS Code. So now this is the code, this is the Python code that I have written to demonstrate how we can simulate the like system calls. So these are the system calls which will run in the background. Suppose now while I'm creating a notepad. So first it will call the create process, as this is Windows system, and if it was operating it would have called fork system. Then we need, so to load the notepad into the memory, we need we need the second fork call. Then so these are the four calls that we require. So this is the another main call, that is fifth call that we need, that we have to schedule the notepad on the CPU. So these are the basically, so this we can we this is a rough like listing of the four calls that we require. So now let's see, and let's run this and see what we have as output. So now you can see that a window has opened. So now through this window I'll be explaining how, like what all system calls will be needed to launch a simple notepad application on our system. So let me, now this is the launch button, let me hit it. Now you can see that at the bottom of the screen, these are the system calls that will be called in the background. to, I can say, open the notepad. So now you can see on the left side, now this is the notepad open. So now you can see that, so these were the system calls that we required to simply launch a notepad application on a system. Now, so that was all about how what all system calls require. So now let's move to another aspect, that is how memory is allocated and CPU is used. Now you can see on the left side of the screen that we have a black screen, and so on that you can see that some parameters have been enlisted. So first is like the process that is notepad we have opened, and we have the PID. Now as we know that every process that is running on the operating system has certain PID. Now it was started, and now currently see that we are not interacting with the, like we have not typed anything in the notepad. So we can see that it has the both the parameters, that is memory usage and the CPU usage, are constant. And so it means that only the notepad is available in the RAM, and it is, you can say, now the interesting, you can see that at the bottom of the left screen, that you can see that the process is sleeping or waiting. Okay, so this means that the CPU is not allocated yet, it's just present in the memory and it is in the waiting state. So now suppose whenever I start writing, you can see the fluctuations on the in the black screen, as well as at the bottom of the screen you can see that whenever I start writing certain things, you can see that the CPU usage fluctuates, as well as the memory usage. Now as we are adding something, so like we are writing the latest, so certain information is being written, so you can say that the memory, extra memory is required. Similarly, if when I try to suppose save this file, you can see that the memory usage we requires a lot of CPU work in the background. So this is how this is how it works. So now as you can see at the in the taskbar, that many processes are required. So whenever I stop the interaction with notepad, so the CPU will be scheduled for other processes and it will start running the background processes or other processes that are like you can see the Chrome at the in the taskbar, as well as we have a screen record. And so these are the applications. This is how it works. So this was all about we can say memory usage and CPU usage, as well as the system calls. So to wrap up, we can say that the system calls are some these are the functions which are called by the operating system to certain perform certain tasks. So it's so without this system calls will, like the OS cannot perform the operations that the user desires. And we can say, and the next thing is that suppose whenever we create a process, so assigning memory and CPU is what is done by the scheduler, and this is the very important task, and it is managed completely by OS. So thank you.